Hey. Welcome back to Straight Up Podcasts on YouTube. Today, I had a recording cancel on me, which was depressing. And by the time I stopped crying, I decided that I wanted to just pump out a quick video. And I made a podcast episode about it, but I kind of wanted to revisit it because I feel that it's important, especially with so many people now starting podcasts, kind of reflecting on my experience. So I wrote out 10 lessons that I've learned from doing a podcast for over a year. My podcast, PodLogic, turned one in, I think July, turned 1 year old. So here are 10 lessons that I learned from doing a podcast for a year. Number one, consistency becomes a habit. So when you first start out, you're really gung-ho about doing the podcast. You're super into it. And then in like a relationship, the honeymoon phase wears off. It starts to get a little monotonous. It starts to become, oh man, it's just the show's not really growing. I'm not getting the downloads I was really hoping for. I don't have 10 million downloads yet. What the hell? Why? And that starts to creep into your mindset. And it can be really, really easy to stop doing your podcast. And I think the conventional wisdom is that it takes 2 weeks to form a habit of doing something every single day. So if you're to put that into podcast terms, you would be doing one episode a week times 14. So 14 weeks before you really get into the groove of doing a podcast. So about 14 episodes. And once you're able to get into that habit, it becomes very easy to continue to sit down at the microphone every single week and continue to put out content. But on the other hand of that, there is the negative version of the habit, which is it can become very easy to stop doing your podcast. You do 15, 20 episodes, and then, something comes up, family trip, emergency at work, something at home, and you miss 3 or 4 episodes. And then the next thing you know, you're slipping a little bit, and it's now been 6 months since you've put out an episode. So consistency really matters. And once you can get into the habit of doing a podcast consistently, then, that part of the process becomes sort of just routine. Number 2, it is okay to take a break. Now, I know you might be thinking, well, you just told me that I can't stop, or else I'm in danger of never doing a podcast again. But it's okay to take a break. Like I've said in previous podcasts and videos, life happens, life gets crazy. Look around. There's a global pandemic. I think it's okay to take a couple weeks off from your podcast. The thing that I would recommend that you do is let your audience know that you're taking a break. Tell them why. Say, hey, I'm going on vacation for 3 weeks, a month, 2 weeks, whatever kind of time frame you want to go for. There's going to be no new episodes until X, and give them a definitive date of when you are going to come back and when you're going to start putting out episodes. Because one, that tells them you're not leaving forever. You didn't just ghost them. All this content that they loved getting every single week is now just gone. And 2, it holds yourself accountable to make sure that you do come back. And 3, there is the upside of taking a break. It allows you to sort of take a step back, realize, okay, where am I going with this podcast? What is the goal for this show? Has that changed at all? Have I committed to my original goal of starting this show, whether that is converting guests into clients, whether that is growing a significant audience, whether that's selling one advertisement at the end of 1 year? Reevaluate your goals, reevaluate what your content looks like, start to plan out a little more of your content, but you're not actually recording, not actually putting content out there. You're sort of just building up for the return, if that's what you want to call it. So it's okay to take a break. Number 3, simplicity is sometimes better. So you can have all the bells and whistles on your podcast. You can have this, incredibly produced intro song. You have a professional voiceover artist do your intro. Welcome to PodLogic, presented by Straight Up Podcast kind of deal. You can have all that stuff, but if your content sucks, why are people listening? People aren't listening because, he's got a really well-produced intro song. That's not why people are tuning in. People are tuning in because you have something to offer them. You're either entertaining them, providing significant information, or any of the other reasons that you would start a podcast. So sometimes you need to take a step back, reflect, and go, okay, am I focusing too much on how much effort we're putting into the cover art? Am I focusing too much on the fact that I just spent $10,000 on the intro song? Or should I be more worried about the content that I'm putting together? What's actually coming out of my mouth should be more important than all sort of the fluff, frills and furls, if that's the colloquial term. Anyway, sometimes all you really need in a podcast is just to start talking. That's what I do with this show. I just hit record and I start talking. So that's simplicity at its finest. So sometimes that works. And I'm not saying you don't have to have all this fun stuff. Like, that's the great part about having a podcast, is you can make it as unique as you want. You can have all the bells and whistles, but that shouldn't be your main focus. Number 4, audio quality matters. There are over 1 million podcasts out there. 1 million. Now, maybe if this was 2005 and there was like 10 podcasts out there, you could get away with just talking into your microphone and having this really shitty audio. You could get away with that, but it is 2020. Everybody has a podcast now. Every business, brand, executive, university, person, your neighbor that lives upstairs, they all have podcasts. And you cannot stand out amongst the crowd if you have shitty audio. You will stand out amongst the crowd as that person that has really shitty audio, because the person that tunes in for 1 second is just going to go, nope. Took 1 second. That's all it took. That is the number one thing that will drive somebody away from a podcast, is if this sounds really shitty. That is the number one thing. So that has to be part of your podcast. Number 5, I have found that posting in the morning has been very, very helpful. So posting in the morning this has just been my own personal preference. After doing this for a year, I've noticed that this is what works best for me. For other people, they post at lunch, in the afternoon, in the evening. Maybe they post on like a Friday night, so you have it all weekend. The reason that I posted in the morning, I post this show at 6 a.m. every Wednesday. And the reason I do that is because my audience knows that the podcast is coming out on Wednesday. I don't want them to have to be thinking about going into their podcast app, whether it's Overcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and hitting refresh and dragging that menu down and seeing the little spinning wheel and not seeing the episode pop up because it's not 1:30. That's when the podcast drops. So I like to give the people listening to this show the entire day to listen to it whenever they want. Some people listen very early in the morning. Some people don't listen until after work. So I find that if you give them the most time possible within your release date, whether that's once a week, once a month, once a year, they have access to it that entire day. So posting in the morning has worked really well for me. Number 6, you're going to screw up. It's going to happen. It is going to happen. You're going to record an entire podcast with an amazing guest. It's going to be great, fun-filled conversation. It's going to be awesome. You had a great time and you're going to go, oh shit, I forgot to hit record. Or, oh God, the microphone wasn't plugged in. Or, oh my gosh, I forgot to schedule the guest. And I'm now sitting on a Zoom call meeting knowing that no one else is going to show up on the other end. It's going to happen. So what you do when that happens is, 1, don't beat yourself up over it. Don't let it ruin your entire day. And 2, learn from those mistakes. Make sure that it doesn't happen again. Learn why you made the mistake. Learn what went wrong, what button you pressed or didn't press, or what you did or didn't do to cause this, immense heartache that you're feeling. Just learn from the mistake and keep rolling with the punches. It's going to happen. There's no way that you're going to have a perfect podcasting record. Sometimes the episode is just going to suck. Find out why it sucked, what happened, what went wrong, avoid that in the future. And you're going to make another mistake and learn from that one, and then the next one, and then the next one. So it's all about rolling with the punches and not letting one little screw up stop you from podcasting altogether. Number 7, don't look at your numbers. Just don't do it. Do not look at the numbers. Everyone cares because obviously you want an audience. You want people to hear your podcast, but don't compare yourself to other people. Don't look at your numbers and let that be the reason that you stop podcasting. If you were to look at your numbers, and this is something that I tell a lot of people when their number one question is, well, how do I get my audience bigger? I say, well, what does your average podcast get now? The average podcast across all podcasts right now gets 120 downloads. Now, that might be way more than you're getting, and that might be way less than what you're getting, but that's the average, and that just is what it is. Imagine you had 120 downloads per episode. Now, put that in the perspective of you are showing up to your local rec center every week, showing up to City Hall or some kind of auditorium every single week, and 120 people are showing up every single week to hear you talk. They're sitting in the crowd. Close your eyes, visualize them. 100 people are coming to listen to you talk about whatever the hell your podcast is about. It's a lot of people, right? Now, it doesn't seem like it because you're not actually seeing the people downloading your podcast, but 120 is a lot. Obviously, in the terms of when you compare yourself to the uber elite podcasts like, Joe Rogan or NPR or all of these people, your main focus shouldn't be how many people are listening. Your main focus should be on the people that are listening and how you can keep them coming back every single week and leveraging them to tell other people to come listen to your show, which, by the way, is a perfect plug for my podcast. If you like this, share this with somebody. Number 8, practice makes almost perfect. I don't like the phrase practice makes perfect because it's not true. You can practice 23 hours a day and sleep for 1 hour and you still won't be perfect at whatever you're trying to do, but you will get really freaking good. You will get really good. So if you don't feel comfortable with how you sound behind the mic, you don't feel comfortable looking into a camera, you don't feel comfortable when you are hearing the sound of your own voice, practice when it's not the real thing. Take 10 minutes out of your day. You've got an hour for lunch, take 10 minutes of that to just sit at the microphone, plug your headphones in so you hear yourself, don't record anything, and just talk for 10 minutes. You do that 2-3 times a week, I guarantee you will feel much more comfortable sitting down behind the microphone doing your podcast. So practice makes almost perfect. You're not going to be at these you're not going to be perfect, but you're going to be a hell of a lot better than you are right now. Number 9, write often. I am a huge advocate of writing a lot. If you can write every single day, I have fallen off the wagon of trying to write every single day. It's really hard, but again, it's back to the habits thing. If you can make a habit of doing it, I think that writing and getting your thoughts on paper make you a much better podcast host. It makes you a much better speaker, a clearer thinker, a more clear thinker. See, I'm not good at grammar, but a more clear thinker. And it's going to help you articulate your thoughts better. So you are able to, in the heat of a conversation, you can pull on stuff more quickly. If you are consistently writing and getting your thoughts out on paper and combine that with the practicing behind the microphone, you're going to be a hell of a podcast host. Okay, finally, number 10, speak like you're talking to a friend. This is how I approach it. I'm talking to you right now like I would talk to any one of my buddies. Straightforward. Act like you're talking to one person. If you have an audience of 10,000 people, put it in the context of you're speaking to 10,000 people. Maybe that lets you go on a little bit of a power trip, but it makes me more comfortable thinking that I'm only talking to one person and that only that one person is going to hear it. So that makes me more comfortable. That's a trick that I've learned from doing this for a year. Speak like you're talking to a friend. It will make you more personable. It won't make you sound as rigid. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. Like it's going to make everything more relaxing. So take those things into consideration. Those are 10 things that I've learned from doing a podcast for over a year and honestly producing hundreds of others. The best piece of advice that I can tell for you is to just start. Just go do it. Just go do it. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. This is the part of the video where I ask you to subscribe to the show. If you don't want to, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Maybe a little bit, but in the long run, it's not going to hurt my feelings. It might sting right now. So I appreciate it if you did do that. And if you are subscribed or you didn't subscribe, but you think you know somebody who would enjoy this, feel free to send this along. You can also check out the audio podcast at PodLogic. Just Google PodLogic, but there will be a link below. And you can check out my website, straightuppodcast.com. We are posting all of these videos on Instagram too. You can follow us there and you can follow us on Twitter, Straight Up Podcast. I'm asking you to do all these things. So if you just do one of them, that would be huge. And if you were to know which one I prefer, it would be to share the video with somebody. So thanks so much. And I will see you on the next one.